Welcome to this special broadcast from the Growth Summit here in Amsterdam. We have three special guests here at our table right now. Mr. Rackham, Sales and Marketing Specialist, also author and speaker on the subject. Welcome. Also with us, André Hagelen, owner of a Dutch company called Search and Results.
That's right.
Yeah. Welcome. And of course, Kees from Spark Education, the host of today's Growth Summit. Welcome too. First question to you, Kees. How important is sales in growing your company?
I think it's in the end it all starts and it ends with sales, right? Without selling, there's no growth for the company. And here we had a speaker. You spoke about it, and one key thing is that in the beginning, always the entrepreneur is the sales guy, and at one point there need to be others in this company to accelerate sales, because the entrepreneur cannot do everything at the same time. And I think this is a critical point in time where we hope to help and inspire entrepreneurs to manage that process as good as possible to continue growing.
Yeah, because the wrong decision then is really serious. And many entrepreneurs don't understand sales well enough to know how to recruit somebody to help them.
They can sell, but they don't understand the sales process or setting up a sales organization, which is completely different.
Well, and the other thing is they have a story to tell that comes from their background and their position, but no one else can tell their story.
That's right, yeah.
And so when they have people, they try to build salespeople to behave the way they behave, and you can't do it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one thing where most companies go wrong. Mr. Rackham, you call yourself the professor of sales. That's how you were introduced here today.
Excuse me, he is actually a professor. So
I'm a professor in 4 universities.
Right, so rightly so. Where do most companies go wrong? You say at the beginning of planning their strategy, that's where they already go wrong?
I think the first thing that happens is when a company starts, it always starts because it has an idea that people are very enthusiastic about and very committed to. Now, one of the studies that my research team did was looking at how people sell new ideas. Almost always when they sell new ideas, they talk too much. The entrepreneur will do this, the early salespeople will do this, they'll go out and they'll talk. They'll tell customers about them. But all the research in selling shows that customers are much more interested in themselves. Mm-hmm. And so good questioning skills, a focus on the customer, these things matter. But if you're an entrepreneur, then you've got a product, you've got an idea, and you want to talk about it.
Vision,
yeah. And it actually inhibits the growth of good new products.
So it doesn't start with a vision, but it starts with some research, I think.
Well, however it starts, you've got to have a saleable idea. The question is, how do you sell it?
Yeah.
So you can sell it by going out and telling people about it, but we know that what that does is it raises initial interest, but then the interest quickly falls off. Or you can relate it to the customer and the customer's needs, and that's much more likely to result in a sale. But entrepreneurs and the first salespeople they bring into their company, they're often not good at that.
Right.
Okay. So let's take Andre's company as an example here. How many employees do you have now, Andre?
About 150.
Okay. And how many of them focus on sales every day?
Well, we have a selling company. Our company specializes in sales. So almost everybody is focusing on sales.
Right.
But if I look pure at selling the products of our company, it's about 4 people.
And what sort of techniques and tools do you use to sell?
Well, I think the main issue for us is first we have to get our proposition very, very clear. And after that, select the clients that belong to that proposition. And this is major. It's also in our advising companies in how to sell. You have to get the proposition right and the right customer who fits to that proposition. And after that, have a lot of marketing, as you just spoke about, a lot of marketing to make your company world famous within that target group.
and after that, then you can start selling and try to get on table. And
Mr. Rackham, is that about the right focus, the right balance within this company?
I think so. Once you get to 150 people, you've turned a critical mass corner. Things start to change at about that size. For example, one of the things which we know is there is a negative relationship between salespeople's enthusiasm for the product and their success.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's good to be unenthusiastic, it's just the curve is unenthusiastic people don't sell well, over-enthusiastic people are a disaster.
Yeah.
Small companies generally have too many over-enthusiastic people. They live the company, they breathe the company, they want to talk about the company, and they cease to be customer focused.
Right.
Once you get to a certain size, you've already gone through a piece of that. So then you face the next challenge, and that is, how do you make a selection in the market? So what you're talking about is exactly that. The idea of saying, here's the value proposition, and here's the people who are meeting it. Say, we don't just go out to the whole market and sell. Most small companies make the terrible problem. They will go out and try to sell to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And focus and cutting it down is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
And yet, salespeople themselves don't like to do that. One of the things that I did was I did a study of selling in a recession a few years ago. In a recession, salespeople go out and call on more customers. Bad mistake.
Yeah.
The ones who succeed call on fewer customers, but they focus better.
Much more.
Now,
Yeah.
you're talking about the importance of focus. But what tends to happen is salespeople don't like to focus, because if I have 10 opportunities, I feel much safer than if I only have 5.
I agree. Yeah.
And so you always will have to force your salespeople to only go after the business which the value proposition meets what we think their needs are.
Well, what I loved about your presentation this morning is to split up marketing departments. One for the long term, one for the short term. And I love the idea of having a marketing department for short term, generating leads. And those leads should be qualified and then put through to sales. So sales are not free just to see whom they want to sell to, but they have to sell to the leads they are being supplied to.
Yeah, and as long as the process by which you generate leads isn't a silo process. What goes wrong often is we have a lead generation function in marketing, or we outsource it, and then there's this list of leads and it goes to the sales force.
Right.
Marketing complains, the sales force doesn't follow up.
Yeah.
Sales complains, the leads were no good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you get nowhere. What you have to do is generate the leads jointly. I think one of the best examples of how you do that is the things Oracle did in Italy. They created there what they called a demand generation board, where sales and marketing came together, and the first decision they made was what segments of the market do we go for and what are the value propositions. Now usually marketing does that, not sales. When they met together, sales said, why aren't we targeting northern Italian shoemakers? Marketing had never thought, Oracle's a technical company. Why would a technology company go after northern Italian shoemakers?
Right.
And the answer is, it's a fashion industry. Distribution and logistics are crucial. If you can get to Paris one day earlier, you make twice the profit than if you're one day late.
Right.
All this depends on having very, very good supply chain logistics management, and Oracle can supply that and control it through their software. Now, marketing hadn't thought of that. So when the two come together, you choose the segments which are the best ones to target, you choose together the value proposition, but then you make another step. Because often the value proposition is a generic. It's about the value proposition for a product or for a company, and that doesn't help you sell.
Yeah.
So if I want a good value proposition, it has to be a value proposition for a customer, a specific opportunity in a customer. Because we all agree that the big issue is selection of the right customer. How we choose the ones where we'll win.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do that? the answer is, you may have 5 potential customers. You can't go after all 5, so which 3 do you go after? The answer is the 3 which have the best value proposition. But the value proposition is specific to that customer, because the value proposition to, for example, a customer who puts a very strong emphasis on price will be very different from a value proposition to a customer who's very concerned about quality.
Yeah.
And so you have to decide, out of the things we offer, which is the best value proposition fit for that customer.
Yeah.
And that involves sales and marketing coming together and not talking generic value propositions. There are terrible things being done that way. I see companies which say, we must make a value proposition, and that's the message, and salespeople must go and say that message to customers. Well, of course that doesn't work. Selling isn't about telling customers messages. Customers don't want to hear that. Customers want to be understood and have their problem solved. But a lot of the pre-work to that comes out of working together, marketing and selling, producing good value propositions for individual opportunities rather than for products or for companies.
Kees, if I may ask you a question. Because we hear Mr. Rackham, his interesting vision on sales, giving it also on stage here. Is that the way to get inspired for entrepreneurs?
Well, I got inspired by his speech, but there's 2 things. There's the inspiring theory and there's the practice. You go back to the office, you have 3 sales guys, you have 1 marketing guy or girl, and then you have to make decisions, changes, and you know, when you look at the spreadsheet or your organogram of the organization, it's easier. But then when you have the people, you know, that person is better in that, and that person is better in that, and the hard decisions are always tough. But it's very good to have an inspiring example to work at. But the day-to-day business is always more difficult.
Yeah. Andre, when you go home to your company, let's say, what will be the next steps for you?
Oh, I will definitely split up my marketing department in the long term and short term. We haven't done it yet, and I think we will do that. Yeah.
Yeah. What will be the specific things you're gonna focus on?
So at this moment, the marketing department does the long term. They create mailings and all those kinds of things, but also are responsible for generating leads and the short term things. And by separating those 2 things, I think we can give much more focus to them. And I think they should work together with sales as well. So I think that's a good advice.
And I like that. One suggestion I would make is, usually the word lead means something different to people in marketing than to people in sales.
Right.
To marketing, it's a potential opportunity. To sales, it's qualified in some way. And getting sales and marketing to sit together and say, what do we mean by lead? So a number of companies, IBM does this, Oracle does this, Unilever does this. They say, let's have an agreed definition of an opportunity and a lead.
Right.
And
Criteria.
so we have our criteria, and it doesn't become an opportunity unless there's a lead that meets these 3 characteristics.
Yeah.
There's a budget, there's a timeline, and there's a need. You know?
Yeah.
And so these become the kinds of things which pull the 2 together.
I love this idea about a software company in Holland who has a welcome team. And in this welcome team, leads come in, and then there's a welcome team. They welcome the client to say, okay, listen, we can help you with all kinds of questions, with all kinds of information, whatever. We won't sell to you. If you have the need for an offer or whatever, then we will give you to sales. And I love this idea, because then you go from a lead to opportunity.
That's right.
So you need your whole organization to have the same language. What would be the role of the entrepreneur himself in this, if you look at smaller companies?
I think that the first thing the entrepreneur has to understand is nobody else in the organization can behave the same way as the entrepreneur behaves with customers. I've started 4 companies. And in 2 of them, I made the mistake about being the over-enthusiastic entrepreneur in the early days. And I expected the people I recruited into sales to behave like me. So I'd say step number 1 for the entrepreneur is to understand you can do things, but other people shouldn't try to do it your way. Yeah? And then the other is, you have to learn to let people do things in their own manner. When I was working with entrepreneurs in terms of developing sales with their people, I'd often send them a sticking plaster through the mail, and I would say with the instructions, put it over your mouth in case you feel like talking in a sales call. Because usually the best entrepreneurs watch their people do it and give them help afterwards, but they don't do the usual, no, stop, let me tell you. Yeah? Because they love to talk, because they're talking about themselves, their babies. Yeah? and so it's very, very hard if you don't think the other people in the organization are showing your enthusiasm, your commitment, and your knowledge. So entrepreneurs make lots of mistakes. They expect too much understanding of the product. Some of the best salespeople just say, a product's a product. What matters is my understanding of the customer. That's my unique contribution.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great advice to end this conversation, because we need to go on the big stage. So, but thank you for sharing your vision on sales and your story of your company, and good luck growing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.